Welcome to A is for Accessability, a series presented by Open Access Technologies that explores best practices and trends in IT accessibility for people with sensory disabilities. I'm Portland Helmick, your host, and today I'm talking to Greg Donnelly, President and CEO of the Carroll Center for the Blind in the Greater Boston area. Thanks so much for being here, Greg.
Thank you, Portland. My pleasure.
Before we dive into IT accessibility, Greg, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the mission of the Carroll Center and what your role is there specifically.
Wonderful. The Carroll Center for the Blind empowers those who are blind and vision impaired to achieve independence and to lead a fulfilling life. And we serve all ages and all stages of blindness and have been doing so for approximately 85 years. And my role specifically here is to help the center with our brand awareness, to reach those consumers that don't know enough about the scope of our services or where we are, or the fact that we can go beyond our campus.
Where do you reach?
So we reach our consumers wherever they are. So we do have an on-site residential vocational independent living training program and technology training here, but we also can take that training and education services out into the communities. So we serve approximately 75 school districts with teachers of the visually impaired, educating students of all ages. We'll go into the homes of seniors and others that just don't have access to our campus for some reason. And with the blind and vision impaired, transportation and access is a common issue. And we also go into the workplaces. So vocational training and skills is a major part of what we do here at the Carroll Center. We're very proud that we can reach all corners of Massachusetts. We welcome individuals from any state that want to come to Massachusetts for training. And we actually serve individuals worldwide. And with the pandemic, we've really expanded our reach with online programming, remote training, digital learning, and so forth.
So if I were to go out on the street, Greg, and ask people about IT accessibility, I think most people would have no idea what that means. I certainly didn't know what it meant before I started working on this series. But you actually say that people who think they know what IT accessibility means really don't. How do you define it?
IT accessibility is complex, but at the same time, it's not. A lot of individuals believe that their websites are accessible because they've gone through a web developer and did all the checks and balances. But often what we find is that websites are not accessible for reasons relative to documents that are loaded onto websites that are inaccessible, and they're often forgotten in the accessibility check process from start to finish when designing and building websites.
So is that the common misunderstanding with the term IT accessibility, that people think that IT accessibility means that a website, for example, is completely accessible when in fact some of the documents on the website might not be accessible? Is that the misconception that a lot of people have?
That's correct. In that IT accessibility is very broad. It involves mobile products and technologies and computers and software. So it's not just websites and it's not just documents. It's all of them combined together.
But I think an example is like when you and I were talking earlier is like of a restaurant, right? For example, like you might go on a restaurant's website, and can you talk about some of the difficulties that someone who's blind or visually impaired might have?
Absolutely. So when someone that's blind or vision impaired goes onto a restaurant's website, for an example, they start with the home page, and then they might go to the next linked page and find some inaccessibility there while they're trying to navigate to get to the menu. And when they get to that menu, which often is a PDF, the PDF itself is inaccessible, which means the document itself has not been remediated in an accessible format.
And this is where your work with open access technologies really comes in. I know that you have an important relationship with them. How has open access technologies been important to the Carroll Center?
Well, it starts at the top with Howard Burke, their CEO. Both Howard and Open Access Technologies, they're a mission-based organization. They're experts at what they do in the accessibility field, and certainly their space with document remediation. And over the past number of years, they work very closely with us on accessibility projects of our own that we do internally here at the Carroll Center. And seeing them and the quality of their work and their dedication to make everything accessible to those with disabilities falls right within both of our missions.
And what is it that they do especially well? So it's document remediation or PDF remediation. Is that what they do especially well?
And more. They virtually scrub and scour websites for all different sectors, business sectors and organizations, to find anomalies that documents are inaccessible throughout their whole digital footprint. And then an easy way to remediate them systematically with state-of-the-art technologies, intelligent systems that at a competitive price to work with these organizations to get their website and their documents up to par, equal access for all.
And you mentioned state-of-the-art technology. What is the current state-of-the-art in document accessibility?
Well, I think Open Access Technologies is there. Their DocMD and Enable Access products are really intelligent systems developed to seamlessly basically go on and scrub a website very thoroughly and all the documents, systematically identifying all the inaccessible components on it, tracking with dashboards and fantastic reporting, which makes it easy for the organization to prioritize and fix and hopefully become a fully accessible environment.
And how is it possible to get more document publishers to follow best practices so the technology out there is compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act?
That's a great question. I think it's a combination of education, and that's part of our mission as well. And it's something that Howard and the Open Access Technology team also does very well. In marketing, the advances in technology are great. The advantages of the services and the products that Open Access Technologies provide are state of the art. And so really what we do here at CCB as accessibility experts and what Open Access Technology does will really drive the different sectors to become compliant, to do good for others that don't have the full capabilities of those with vision or those that do not have disabilities, to be able to provide them to efficiently go and use all systems that are available to them.
And how do you train people to follow best practices? I assume you need to work closely with the blind and visually impaired.
That's correct. We do a lot of training in this space, as does Open Access Technology. And we also use end users, individuals with disabilities. So, for an example, the Carroll Center, 20% of my staff are blind or vision impaired. When you involve and utilize experienced end users, there's nothing better to help train others to really understand the relevance behind accessibility and what other end users experience.
And what technologies, Greg, do you think are emerging that maybe in the next 5 years are going to become the new standard?
I think the goal is to, A, for accessibility. Accessibility always has to come first. So during a build out, accessibility, both from a system standpoint, a document standpoint, gets embedded as part of the process in the build out and design of all emerging technologies, so that everything on a site or a mobile product or a digital footprint is accessible from the get-go, instead of having to bolt on expensive repairs or redos, which I've witnessed myself over the years.
Right, because when it's not made accessible up front, and then you have to go back after a site, for example, has been created and make it accessible, it's much more costly.
It's more money. It often brings forth PR-related issues. We've seen organizations and government agencies, all different business sectors, launching state-of-the-art websites that don't have remediated documents, or that are just inaccessible in multiple ways.
And how do you see the role of open access technologies in the future when it comes to document accessibility?
I think they're ahead of the curve, and they're truly gaining market share in their expertise in space that they exist in. I love to refer them and partner with them, because they're working right alongside us hand in hand to assist those with disabilities and others, establish the same equity and equality across all of the platforms that we use on a day-to-day basis, especially in this COVID environment. Everyone's home, and everyone's digital and online, and the experience is very different when the experience is in accessibility. And so I think they're well positioned with their internal expertise, their mission, top down. And I'm happy to be a true partner of theirs in this line of work.
I know that you're really proud of the work that you do with them. What are you proudest of?
I think the true collaboration, the end goal for us is to make an accessible environment for all. And they have an expertise that we don't have, and capabilities that we don't have. And so when we have a big project, we'll work with open access technologies to finish that project, or we'll refer them directly relative to components of an accessibility project that we can't complete on our own. And there's such a good bond and relationship to give our clients an outstanding product at the end of the project.
And finally, Greg, can you talk about why equal access to data and information is so vitally important?
Well, it's the law with the ADA compliance. It reduces organizations' risk in multiple manners. There's lots of legal compliance, regulatory compliance around accessibility for all. Even in the workplace, you have millennials these days that they want to work for a company that's doing social good. And when they see that they're developing websites and tools and technologies, platforms and software that's accessible, that they're very happy and proud to work for an organization like that.
I want to thank you so much for talking with me today, Greg.
Thank you so much, Portland. I really enjoyed our time together.
And if people want more information about the Carroll Center, where can they go?
They can go right to our website, www.carroll.org.
And that's CARROLL.org. Again, Greg, it's a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
And if you'd like more information about open access technologies, you can go to www.openaccesstech.com. That's OPENACCESSTECH.com. I'm Portland Helmick. Thank you so much for joining us on A is for Accessibility. I hope you learned something new.